Evening, everybody. About 2 years ago, I gave a presentation on American Banknote Company archival material, and I want to come back sort of to that subject, but expand on it to include some other things that aren't necessarily archival material, but apply to all the American Banknote Company products. So I'll start off with this initial slide showing their offices. The one on the old-fashioned building on the left is from the 1870s. That was their building that they had until about 1909, 1911, when they went to this newer building in the center, which was their office until 1990 or 1988. And the building on the right is actually where they did the production from 1909 out in the Bronx. It's now repurposed for something else. So let's get into it. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go give a review about die numbers since I've been asked a lot of questions, and then I'm going to ask a question: are these American Banknote Company dies? A little more proofs, some things about the various American Banknote Company albums. Talk about die color proofs in the problem that I'm working on right now that I don't have an answer to. Talk about plate numbers and how they relate to information that you'll find on the index copy cards, and the specimen and muestra markings that you'll see, and a thing called PEM, P-E-M, and I'll explain what that means. And then one of the things that I find very interesting is talking about the work that the American Banknote Company outsourced and doesn't get as much recognition as it should. And finally, some additional American Banknote Company documents that I didn't show before. So, die numbering for the American Banknote Company, they used 3 different systems over the years. There was one from the founding of American Banknote Company until 1879, when they merged with National and the Continental Banknote Companies to form the new American Banknote Company. And that was when then they initiated a new system from 1879 to 1924. And then in 24, they had yet another third system which they used. So let's just review each of those systems pretty quickly. The first system which was used, they just had die numbers, just numbers on the dies, and they had different series within each system, and so they just had different series. So they might have a series for vignettes, another one for numbers, and so forth. And then in 1879, they switched to having a letter prefix. In the case for the items that came out of New York, the prefix was a C. It's thought to perhaps be city or consolidated, since that was the name of what the new company was referred to. And again, you had different series. You had one series pretty much for each country. You had them for different things. And so you end up with, like, for example, within a 2-year period, you went from number 1, which was not unique because you had a C1 in each of the different series. And then in 1883, it went up to C12 for this one from Hawaii. And so you get to the period where you're now the American Banknote Company. You've have all of these dies that you had when the American Banknote Company was formed from a number of companies. You have all their dies, all of them numbered or not numbered. You've got the Continental Banknote Company dies. You've got the National Banknote Company dies. You've got all the companies, which was quite a few, that you had on hand. All of them have numbers, have this, having not numbers. You now have them in wooden boxes, pretty much stored away. Only it's a mess. You can't uniquely identify a die by its die number. So for inventory control purposes, not accounting, but for inventory control purposes, what you decide to do from that point on, you're going to give each new die a unique number, and it's going to start at 50,000. So you go 50,000, your next die you create, 50,001, blah, 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 up, and you keep going. You take all the dies that you have on hand and you give them some number between 1 and 49,999. And you just renumber them, and you take die proofs of all of what you've got. You notate on your older die proofs before you've renumbered them in pencil. You've got them in books and renumbered, and now you have everything so that every die is uniquely numbered. You get the number 55,223. You know what die it is. You can get to it and find it. The reason why that's important is because you could then take an old die that you use for something, add it with some new stuff, and produce a essay or a proposal die or design or something that you could show to a customer or real quickly. And it's a big advantage to have this giant stock of dies on hand that you can use to create new things from. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's why you did it. And so when you did it, they scratched out old numbers and put on the new numbers down at the bottom. So this one, since this was a vignette, they used the prefix V, and since it was on hand, it got a number under 50,000. So this was what happened with one Continental Banknote Company die. Now, I found some exceptions to that, and I'm not sure whether they renumbered the typographic die. So this is a typographic die which was used for this part of this Chile postcard. It was used on several different values and issues. And it has the number C59, and it's definitely did not get renumbered. So I don't know whether or not the renumbering was just on the engraved dies, or this was just an exception that they didn't do. There's just not enough actual typographic dies to form an opinion on. So a couple of years ago, a bunch of dies showed up and were claimed to be American Banknote Company dies. And as many of you will notice, you've got this Ecuador die and the Salvador die for stamped envelopes, and no, these had come from Hamilton Banknote Company. And the question is, were these really ever in the hands of the American Banknote Company? And to understand what the answer is, you have to go through this sequence of history, and that you start out with a company called Security Banknote Company being founded in 1884. In 1948, you have the Hamilton Banknote Company, I probably misspelled that, being liquidated. And then in 51, that Security Banknote Company acquiring the existing Hamilton banknote dies and plates. And then Security Banknote Company and the Columbian Banknote Company formed together to make a new company called Security Banknote Company in 57. And then in 65, they changed themselves to United States Banknote Corporation. So you have that going on at one point. On another side, you have a company called International Banknote who acquires the American Banknote Company. So you have the American Banknote Company as a subsidiary operation of International Banknote Company. In 1989, there's a giant proxy fight over the running of the International Banknote Company. And the end result of it was at the end of the year, this United States Banknote Corporation acquires American Banknote Company as part of the purchase of the International Banknote Company. So all of these dies from Hamilton, which had been part of the United States Banknote Company, now gets joined by the American Banknote dies. So these aren't really American Banknote dies, hadn't ever been part of the American Banknote Company at any point in time. Just wanted to make that really clear, that despite what Lawrence and David Lawrence Company was saying, that these were part of the American Banknote Company, held by American Banknote Company, it was never held by American Banknote Company. So let's start with some more proofs. These are three interesting proofs that unfortunately I didn't know about when they first were made available. I've since been given the scan for this. I don't know whose collection they're in at this point. And in fact, I don't know whether these are on India paper or on card or what, but what's interesting about them are these color marks down at the bottom of their, in the same color ink as the frame. And I haven't seen these for anything like this for other countries or any other issues, even for Chile, than these three. And so if anybody knows of any of those, anything like these, I'd be very interested to find out. So, American Banknote albums. Okay. Unfortunately, many of these albums have been broken up. And this is a page of National Banknote Company, of one of their albums, which with the merger in 1879 became owned by American Banknote Company. And you can see what happened in 1924. They took this album and they, in a red pen, marked the new die number on it. It appears that everything they had on hand that they could renumber, they marked in the book what the number is. Now, I have no idea what the number in circle is referring to at all. I just have no idea. But this just gives you an idea of what a page owned by a banknote company who's got all these dies would put their dies in a book and just have them so that you could flip through them. Now, unfortunately, until 1924, flipping through them just give you an idea of that you had a die, but you now had to go do searching for finding them. So another set of die of things that are in an album was this set of cardboard card plate proofs. And if you collect any country that has American Banknote Company, you're going to see this ubiquitous sort of creamy tan colored cardboard. You just are going to see it all the time. And what it means is all of these things were in one or more American Banknote Company albums. What's interesting about this set is these all have had a circular punch through the card stock, but there's no specimen written on them, because most of them that you'll have seen have specimen. These don't have specimen. So this came from some album. Not sure what its purpose was other than keeping track of them, and they had the order number and sometimes in the year. Another album was this, where again it's on that ubiquitous card stock, and in pencil they wrote, and this, knowing the handwriting, this was done by the archivist at the time, American Banknote Company, collected them and wrote down the order number. Now, these were all collected and put together in this album after 1924, because there's others that you'll put the new die numbers from the third series. So I know these were not done contemporaneously, at least until starting in 1924. Another album that they had on this cardstock are photo essays, which, what it gives you an idea of what they could do with a die. They could take a background die that they had and then take a photo of another die or a picture, and then combine them together and take a picture of the whole thing. And now you had some additional dies, and these all come on large pages, much like that one that I showed you initially from the National Banknote Company. And then you have here's yet another book of die proofs, and these all have dies with the original die numbers. They're cut down die proofs, and they have written on them, except for when it's been cut off in the process of selling these, where they've put the new third series renumber on them of what they're going to be. So you've got all of these albums that have now been cut up and sold, but just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that they kept to keep track of things. And then you have the small die proofs as opposed to the large die proofs that are, fairly large in size. These are about 100 by 100 millimeters in size. There's a number of them, and they all have this brown muck on the back. I don't know what you'd call it, other than what it is leftover glue that it was on, and somebody has taken them out of the album. So this is another thing to look for if you want to have an idea of whether or not this is American Banknote had been in their archives or not. Is this glue, residual glue? Now, this is something that came to my attention recently, and I hadn't really thought about it or observed it very much. Nick Salter had come to me talking about die proofs with tears in them. There's a tear in here, and then there's another tear around here. And what's interesting is those tears are at the registration mark. There's both a red and black registration mark. And it's, if you notice, if you connect these two, it goes right through the center of the vignette. And the question is not so much, well, it's obvious that these registration marks in red and black are so you can have a very nice die proof with the center being in the perfect position and all of that. But the question is, why the tears? And I don't know. I really don't know. I've had some ideas that I thought that maybe that they took, say, one of the dies first and put that down, and then sort of use some sort of an anchoring system with a hole that came up, and that went through the other die, so you could get nice registration. But I have no idea. I don't know. I don't think that that's true, and I'll show you why in a minute. So you have these two bicolor die proofs from Chile. This was done before this, in the sense that this was what the color was originally going to be, but they changed it to from red to blue. Now, if you look real carefully, you can see a little bit of the registration mark there, and a little bit there, and right here is a tear, which doesn't show up on this scan at all. But you look over here, there's no tear and no registration mark. So obviously they have some way of doing it without registration marks, except I have another one of that red die of the same thing. This time it's got registration marks, top and bottom, and tears. So I got thinking, why do some of these have registration marks? And every time I've seen the registration marks, I've seen this tear in the die proof. And I thought, let me go back and look at some of the dies that David Lawrence was selling. And I took it and happened to have a scan of the head of O'Higgins, which they used for that. And sure enough, on the die, there's the registration mark there, and there's a registration mark here, but there's no hole going through there for my idea of having them, that being used, how they got the registration marks to match up, and why there was a tear. So conclusion is, I've got no idea of why the tear is there, and would be interested to hear other ideas. And I went back and looked at some of the other dies that he had, and sure enough, on the Centenario set for Chile, there's the registration mark there, and there it's a lot smaller. And here, and in fact, we've got, this is from, I think it's the 1901 Sillies from Chile, that it's actually got registration marks on all four sides, top, bottom, right, and left. Now, what I also have been thinking is that going back to like this one and that one, that what they could do is just ink this area and the registration mark, not ink this part, and you could, that's how you could get it without putting it all together and not having this text show up. So at least that's my current thought, but still doesn't explain why there's no tears at the registration mark. So let's get to plate numbers. Plate number, based on this index copy card, you notice it says transfer make a plate that's got 100 of the border, and then another plate that's got 100 of the 1 peso center plate. So you had a plate for the center and a plate for that. The American Banknote Company, if they only made 1 plate initially, then there's no number. So you won't see any plate number on these in this area here. It'll, if they have a plate number, it'll show up there. But if you go to this one, which is from a later series from Chile, this one, notice it says it's going to create for the 8 centavos plates A1 and A2. And over here, this is what it's going to show up. It's going to show up in reverse, because what they did was stamped it so that anybody looking at the plate could see the number in the correct order, that you could see A2 and know that it was. You didn't have to deal with a reverse image. So when it prints, it'll come out reverse image. Now, the next one is one to take that shows you why you have to watch out. This one, they took a they transferred 2 plates, and each plate had 200, and then it gets printed in a sheet of 200 and then divided into panes of 100. But this one example has a plate number of A3, and A3 was created for their 1907 order. And while the information on here is correct for what's there, it does not include any information about subsequent orders. It's only the initial order for that stamp. So that's why, even though there's later plate numbers than what would be indicated by this, you just have to remember this is only the initial order. So I just took a bunch of specimens that I had for the Presidente issue. So in this period between 1910 and 1915, they used a large number of different specimen overprints. I mean, you have them like this, that some of the initial printings from the initial order had specimen in italics, or you have a as in a sans serif in red and a sans serif in a purple color, or you can have a giant sans serif in red and purple for specimen. And then you can also find it in different sizes, this being 3 millimeters high and that 4 millimeters high. And so at some point, somebody needs to sit down with the specimens from a number of countries and start classifying the specimens, and we'll see what turns out when you compare what's used for each order at which time period, because I've seen for the same order on different values they use different specimens. So I don't know whether the specimens were always done at the time of the order or added sometime later or what. But it'll be interesting to find out all the different specimen hand stamps were used. The next one is these Muestras, which, you know, these are very, don't show up very often. You see specimens all the time, but you hardly see Muestras. I mean, you have this Muestra on this stamped paper from Chile. You have it on this unissued stamped envelope from Chile. And then they made 6 sheets of all the values from this issue and had it with twice it in each margin, at the top, bottom, right side, left side. And I would just be interested in finding out other countries if there were Muestras applied by American Banknote Company. I know there's Muestras on American Banknote Company stamped envelopes from Argentina, but that Muestras on those were not applied by American Banknote Company. That was applied down in Argentina. So this is yet another question that I don't have a good answer for. So switching back to archival material, we've got PEMs, which stands for pre-engraving material. So again, my favorite O'Higgins, which we've used a lot. This card, which has a cutout die proof on it, was the original art for the stamp. And the OA stands for original art. And there's some number on it. And if you look on the back, it tells you what order that it's used for, and that it's the pre-engraving material for die C379 for Chile, and this stamp, this die proof is 379, and but with the new number on it. So you go from this large die proof, they re-engraved it over here, and if you take a look at some of the details, you can see how they changed it a bit. There's not as much, the shading on the bandolier changed, and if you just look at the details, you can see that it was a model, not something that they could use the die and through a pantographic machine get it smaller. So you have that kind of pre-engraving material is around. The next thing I wanted to talk about was outsourcing. Not everything on an American Banknote Company order they produced themselves. Now, there were times when they had to come up with sashes for their client, and clearly they didn't make sashes, so they went out and bought them. They would provide cancelers, and so they didn't make them and go out and buy them and include them and add their profit to it. Well, they didn't make the orders that came in for stamped envelopes was not very large, and so what they decided to do was outsource the production of of these stamped envelopes, and these are, let's see, eight different examples of American Banknote Company envelopes that they had outsourced to George F. Nesbitt. These are both just typographic, or in these case, these are embossed. They're from Canada. That was one of their early ones in 1859. You have Mexico, which was fairly early, the first issue of stamped envelopes in Mexico. Argentina, there was a bunch. And until 1904, all of the stamped envelope work was outsourced except for the Guatemala Central American Exposition envelopes. They did that internally, but they had all the other envelopes produced by George F. Nesbitt. And then he contracted out to an engraver called Rudolf Laubenheimer, who made who did the dies for George F. Nesbitt. And these are some examples that have came to the market when his estate went up for sale last 10 years, I guess it was. And one of the things that also they had in the estate were these folders, and it's really not a folder, it's a card, which is this, with a cover page that's joined at the top. So if you flip it up, you get to see what's inside. And this is one of the folders that he had, and just basically is telling you that this is what he did in 1887 for George F. Nesbitt, who did that for American Banknote Company. So these were done. They made the envelopes. The envelopes went to American Banknote Company, completed and boxed, ready to go. American Banknote Company paid George F. Nesbitt. American Banknote Company took that amount, added profit onto that, and sent that as an invoice to the company, the country that ordered it. So we get to towards the end, which is some documents I didn't show before. And one of these is this thing called, which is a form where they say that they want a model or proofs, and this has all sorts of information on it. You can find about the size. Sometimes you can find out about any text that's supposed to be on it. And in this case, they also listed the source, or I should say the model for which they're going to have the vignettes, used for the vignettes on it. So it's got lots of good information on it. It's got the order number F2575 and all sorts of dates. So it's very useful. But the last one I wanted to show you is something you don't see very much: a cremation document. I mean, I don't necessarily think of having a cremation document from a banknote company. And what had happened was the American Banknote Company was going through stuff that they had on hand. And for Chile, they found they had tens of thousands of envelopes and parcel cards and even postal cards. And they were offered to Chile, but by 1922, all of these things didn't apply to the postal rates at the time. So Chile had no need for them, even though American Banknote Company was going to give them a good discount on them, but they declined. And so American Banknote Company decided to incinerate them and produced cremation certificates that they could put in their files to say what they had done with these production overruns, even though these production say this is cremations happening in 1922. The production of these were going back in some cases to 1907. So they just had these on hand for future reference, so they could tell the country that they had gotten rid of any of their material on hand. So that brings me to the end, and I guess it's good time for question and answers.
Great
or release
presentation,
questions.
Rose. Thank you. That was awesome. I don't know if anyone has any question there. And while we wait, it's the first time in my life that I've seen a cremation document related to some philatelic material. I didn't even know that could exist.
It makes a great epilogue page, an exhibit.
Have you found that recently, or how do you come across that?
How did I come across it? Well, okay. I happened to buy the 20th century Chile Correspondence Files held by the American Banknote Company.
Okay.
And this was stuck in the files. Let's see. Let me. No, I don't have a copy. What they are these books. You notice how they have these punch holes. Mm-hmm. You know those old kind of.
Those are the ledger type, right? Because that's what they have to have.
Here's an example. Let me get that up. This is an example of what they look like.
Okay.
And they're just, paper, and they're held together by, remember those old clips that go through?
Yeah, the fasteners
that go through from the front. They have the prongs, they go through, and you fold them over on the back. And that's where I found these cremation certificates happen to be in there.
It was a nice
that cremation certificate is not for Chile, it's for New York, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is all done for them so that they could then say if Chile ever asked, they could produce, see, we got rid of your items, your excess items.
Oh, now I understand. You're saying that the certificate is for the Chile material that they burned.
Right.
Oh, I see. Oh, I get it now. Okay.
And in this case, they burned 4,750 of these 80 centavo parcel cards.
Right.
Which they called package cards, and at one point they even called them registered package cards, even they had nothing to do with being registered at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For a moment, I thought you were talking about like a person's certificate, and it's just like there is for people now that they have one for discard material.
Yes.
But it's kind of funny though. Now it sounds like a joke, but it's interesting they had the same process.
I thought so too.
So my guess is also that when they sold services to countries, they just didn't sell like one stamp or two stamps. They probably sell a package where they were also offering all sort of like legal documents, right? That were beyond just stamps, correct?
Well, in some cases, yes. I mean, for example, with Chile, they sold currency.
Oh, okay.
They sold bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
But when you say bonds, you mean the actual printed paper that's says it's a bond, right? Okay.
The bonds like like you would get from or a stock certificate.
Right. Okay.
With coupons on them and things like that. In fact, when you go through the order books of the American Banknote Company, you will see that the number of orders for philatelic material is very small part of their business.
Mhm.
It may be, you know, when they did work for the United States until 1894, lucrative and in large quantity, but in terms of the number of orders, the philatelic stuff is pretty small. You know, they had the orders are in big ledger books. Let me see if let me see if I can get to something, you know, right now. Let's see. Bet you it's over here. No. No, not there. Is it in here? Oh shoot, I can't find the photo that I'm looking for. Oh, okay. New share. Just to show you some pictures. Back, oh, I don't know, around
At the actual
1990.
warehouse?
Well, this is where, remember, well, I talked about it last time about 200 tons of
Yes,
steel.
yes.
Well, you're looking at part of that haul.
That's what I thought.
So
Amazing.
you've got these transfer dies, you've got box and boxes of dies. And if you look carefully, you can see they're about the size of a die,
Yeah.
most of them in some sort of an envelope.
Yes. Now I own a few of those.
So this is what happened to that 200 tons worth of steel as they got put in here. But what I'm trying to do is find this picture. Shoot. Because I was going to show you what some of the ledger books looked like. And, you know, they're ledger books. Okay. So they're tall and they're wide. And what they would do was it was ordered by date, and they'd put in one order, next order, and so forth. And out of each one of those volumes, if I got 3 stamp orders, I thought I was doing really great when I was going through them. So that tells you how much other business they were doing than stamp orders. They would do traveler's checks. Remember those ancient things? They did regular checks. They did business cards. They did corporate stationery. They did all sorts of stuff and stocks. I mean, they were the company that companies used for the New York Stock Exchange.
Yep.
But sorry, I can't show you what at one point what the volumes looked like. It'll be nice when the Museum of American Finance gets a proper home and they can get them out on the shelves again.
That will be good. I seen a hand over there, Guillermo.
Yes. Hi, Ross. Congratulations for the conference. Fantastic as always. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, do you have more information about the photographic record that you showed when it was prepared and what countries were included, and if it was a single book or how was it? Because I have the pages for El Salvador, but basically I don't know anything about it, just besides the fact that it was a photographic record, no?
Okay, let me find file for us. So lovely. Oh, there it is. Well, I can work out. So let me just. Did that page show up?
No,
All
we're
right.
still seeing the
Okay.
picture of the warehouse.
Okay. So look, here's
There you go.
a page from one of the from them, the ledger books. So here's one from 1878. This one's for you, Henry.
Yep. Peru.
Where Peru ordered stuff, and what they ordered was ink and for writing and for copying, and packing paper and pencils and blotting paper and all that. So this is just gives you an idea of the kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Let's see, what other articles did they have? I think they had some interesting other articles. Stamping inks, some balances and ink pads and
They provided everything.
padlocks even. So that's one kind of stuff. Let me get to okay, let's go to Nicaragua. Let me share this image. Okay, so this is October 1879, and let's just look at the top part for Nicaragua. They ordered postage stamps. So they were ordering 1,000 impressions of panes of 100. These were all 100. They ordered 1,500, 3,250 of various values. There was cost for the paper, and in fact, you can see the size of the paper that they used. And then they were to gum and perforate it, and then put them in a tin-lined wooden box. And then over here, you can see this B, which stands for, that was when the invoice was done on the 13th of November of 1879. And the invoice was for $180. And this was to deliver to somebody, I don't know, and then it tells when it was delivered and gives you, so that's just one on that page. And then we have this other company. Oh, these were for stock certificates.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was $180 some dollars. This was $101 for that company. So gives you an idea of the varied kind of work they did. Let me see if there's anything in.
It's quite nice. This is the predecessor of NYSE. So New York Stock Exchange, the previous one.
Let's see. Let me share this one. Now, this one is and this one is for stamps for Argentina. doing that. Again, this one now also tells you the company that they owns where they'd gotten the paper from. And let's see, anything on that? Oh, and then over here, it tells you that it was sent out on the Republic on July 18th and how much it was insured for. And in this case, they charged, this was being charged as in British sterling pounds. So there's that. Let's see if I can find something. Yet a different one. Oh, let's do this one. This one is a much bigger, well, is a sort of a big order in the sense that it has multiple things. This is Bolivia in 1886, where they're ordering postal cards. And there's all sorts of information on that. Let's see. You can, let's see how many of those they were going to do. That these were to go in, there was going to be some cardboard that they were going to need for it, and that came from Conroe Brothers, you know, just what any philatelist needs to start looking for, or in this case, they were all put up in starboard boxes, which came from Baldwin and Fullerath. Okay. And then they also bought mail bags, mail locks, hand stamps, court cancelers, stamping pads, and all of that. So all of that got sent for just under $6,300. So those are some of the things where I've gotten some of my information from. There's another set of books that I call the print order books, because that's what they have orders and then they say print. And so it seemed like a good name for them. Now, they're only those aren't sales books, because these appear to be only the things that were printed at the American Banknote Company. And in fact, I have a feeling that for the longest time period that they were just for the engraving department, for engraved material. But later on, because I'm missing some stuff that I know was printed by American Banknote Company and they're not in the books. So, but later on, they start putting more of the typograph and then offset printed stuff in there. So all that stuff is good stuff for what they have at the Museum of American Finance. And it'll be great when they finally first get back to working in their office and then when they go into a facility where they can have the books out, because they're back in the same situation they were back in, let's say, 94, where they were in this office in an old Standard Oil building on Broadway, right by the famous bull statue. And the books were in these large boxes in no particular order. Mm-hmm. And so to find anything, you were just opening a box and then opening up whatever was in the box. Yeah. There was no writing on the outside saying this is for this time period to this time period. And then they finally moved into an old Bank of New York building in the basement and lobby and the mezzanine level. And then they were able to get all of the books out onto shelves and they were in order, and you only ended up carrying them up and down 3 flights of stairs.
Mhm.
But then one of the floors above them had a broken pipe, and basically it flooded them out, and then they moved into another building, office building back on Broadway, and back into a small place, so they don't have their museum out anymore, and you have to go and you'll have to make appointments, and I don't even know if they're taking appointments when they reopen after they get people back to work.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely complicates things. And just one clarification, Rose, before we move into
Sure.
another part. So this ledger, this is more like a daily activity log, right? So this type of ledger tell you, and it mixes pretty much everything. Whatever happened that day could be a country, could be a company, could be whatever. And the other records you are referring to are more specific to groupings per country or per client.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you've got a set of books, these big ledger books that have they write down as the orders come in and make some notations on them.
Daily log kind of thing.
It's sort of a daily log. There's yet another set of books where they actually have what person X is doing on that day.
Okay.
And those really never got unpacked as far as I know. I looked at them, and you weren't gonna, they were all tied to a job number. So it wasn't like you could, unless you could figure out what the job number was, these weren't very useful. And then the second set of books had what they were going to print, and then either somewhere on the front or on the back of that sheet, they would have how many were printed that day. So you can actually tell on the 3rd of March, they did 40,000 postal cards for Chile. And then on the 5th, they did another 20,000 and so on. And then you have, now, in terms of those books, the sales, the order books, the ledger ones go up to about 1900. The books that have the print orders go up to late 1909. So you're missing everything after those 2 dates.
Mm.
Then you have the correspondence books, which at the Museum of American Finance, they have mostly what they have is stuff from the 19th century. The newer stuff was donated to the American Philatelic Library. That is the philatelic parts. The numismatic and stock type of stuff, that went to the American Numismatic Library in Colorado. And I don't know if they've ever unpacked that material. I know for a number of years they just didn't have the people to unpack them or do anything with them.
But at least we know where they are in case someone decides.
Well, more or less. I mean, I've got the 20th century Chile. I know the person that's got both the philatelic and numismatic portion of Panama. I think they're in Norway right now.
Okay.
David Zimmer has got those. I don't know if others have them, but a lot of the 20th century stuff is in at the APRL in Belfont.
Great. Guillermo, still with you have another question?
I would basically like to go back to the original question of the photographic record.
Which one? Which photographic record are you referring to?
The ones that you showed some. The
Oh,
ones,
okay.
the bromide pages.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get that. Oh shoot! I did that right over.
I guess that's page 14 on your deck.
Let me, or if you want, let me share something so you can see
Okay.
the whole page. Give me a second. Oh, give me 1 second.
Yeah, something's coming up.
Here is. Okay, you see my screen?
It's coming
Yes.
up. Now we see it.
Yeah.
This is the El Salvador section of what I believe is the same that you
Yes.
presented, Cora,
Yes.
for Chile. There are 3 pages, basically. They start in 1911 and they end up in around 1940 something, 49. But basically, I don't have any reference how many countries were there. I know that there is Costa Rica, for example, that Brian Morehouse did this booklet some years ago, and then yours from Chile, but I don't know what else there could be similar to this, no?
Yeah, I've seen some others in various exhibits. I think Blum has got some for Guatemala.
Mhm.
And say Costa Rica, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, though, I don't know all of them, but yeah, that gives you a pretty good idea of what the whole page looks for. I couldn't find my whole page. I it's somewhere up in my office in the stacks.
But it's there. Somewhere.
It's there. I still have it. I know. Well, I know it. It wouldn't have been thrown out. Hi, Heinz.
Hi, Ross. I think Mauricio was first.
Yes. Go ahead, Mauricio.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ross, for the presentation. I do have a question and a comment. First, the question regarding those proofs that you show that have the little punch holes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen more of them from other countries?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know if they came from the same, well, basically they came from the same place, but if they came from maybe a middle guy before you got them?
No.
Because that could explain how.
Because I've got them on those small, I have them on the small 100 by 100 small die proofs. I've got them on the large die proofs. Any of them that are like that, yeah.
Yeah, because that's interesting. First time I see those punch holes.
But only on the bicolor.
Yeah. Okay, and the comment was, for example, for those photographic proof that Guillermo was talking about, I have seen from Honduras. Unfortunately, not the whole page. I have seen them now just cut individually, but I have seen from Honduras that material as well. And thanks again for the presentation.
Anytime.
Heinz.
Hi, Ross. How are you?
Very good. How about you? Congrats on your large gold in London.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your interesting presentation from today. I want to make some comments about the Chilean Presidentes series you're shown. American Banknote made the series from 1911, and you have shown some of the die proofs there. But later you have shown 3 proofs with a bar below, with a colored bar below.
Yeah.
After 1913, a new company, this was John MacDonald of London, made a similar series. So I think these 3 proofs are from John McDonald, not from American Banknote.
Except these are engraved,
Excuse me?
where those that I showed are engraved frames.
Engraved frames.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And what what McDonald did is, if you look, is all of the proofs that he did was actually in black. Even if the frame was going to be green or red or whatever color, his proofs tended to be all black proofs. And he, as far as I remember, in all the ones that I have that come off the top of my head, he did proofs where you had the frame and you had the vignette. They were all separate. They weren't together, one on top of each other. That's why I don't think those were done by McDonald. I mean, it's possible they could have been done down at the TEV, which became which got incorporated in the Casa Moneda when he sent material down there, but he didn't send. He kept the dies and sent plates and the transfer rolls because of, by the time they were doing that, World War I had started, and for safety, he was having the Chilean embassy in London having them send the transfer rolls in the diplomatic bag and sent the plates separately, partially for safety and partially because they were having a heck of a problem getting export licenses to send that steel engraved work, that steel work out of the UK. I mean, it's amazing that they were ever able to get the plant working on the basis during World War I. I mean, they had some of their stuff they sent was sent by mines on ships, and really interesting. So I don't think they would have made die proofs down in Chile from taking the transfer roll and making new dies. I think they just took the transfer rolls, which they had received from McDonald, and could make new plates. They had the machinery to do that, and they had the machinery which they did for engraving new stamps, like they did for the four centavo stamps. And then when they, because when there was a lot of miscommunication going on between Santiago and London, either with or without the embassy being involved, where where McDonald thought that they were trying to make imitations of everything the American Banknote Company, whereas Chile had ideas of having new vignettes on some of the values. So McDonald had to go back and engrave brand new dies all over again for some of them initially.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sure.
Jaime.
Well, thank you, Ross. As always, anything related to the American Banknote Company is fascinating, and to learn that such material exists is just starts your mind churning and trying to figure out what else could it be there that we haven't found. And that's why I want to share something I have with everybody here, because it's a facet of the printing process of the American Banknote Company that I haven't seen in Mexican stamps, but I also collect banknotes, Mexican banknotes, and this is I wouldn't call it a proof. I wouldn't call it even an essay, because it's sort of a I don't know if the image is showing.
Yes.
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 It's sort of a collage where each element was sort of put together and pasted together. That's why this element in the corner is missing. And basically this was sent to the customer. I want to imagine that, because there is a notation in the bottom part that is in Spanish that says sírvanse devolver este modelo al American Banknote Company in Nueva York. And it shows some notations that I guess the customer would have make and then approve the design. This is fascinating, because I haven't seen these for stamps, but I have this one for banknotes, so I imagine the process was similar for stamps. And the back of the banknote, they didn't even bother to make it precise. They use another bank's name, and then you have the final product, which is this one. But it's not printed. It's pasted together. It's sort of a collage of papers. So I wanted to share this with everybody. I have a couple of pieces. I have three actually, two from Mexico and one from Bolivia. I managed to get hold of those, and they are fascinating, because you see how painstakingly they put together every piece they printed, and that's why they reached the security level that they were so famous for. Anyway, I just wanted to share this one as part of what is there from the American Banknote Company.
Yeah. I've got some also where part of it is been printed, part of it is with green ink that they did some of the design work. They've blotted out some stuff with white ink, sort of the old form of back in 1911, the equivalent of whiteout. Then you've got the center vignette being a photograph that they've taken photograph of a building, they've shrunk it and then cut it out and pasted it, so it's got multiple levels in it.
It's so fascinating to see the printing process from the beginning.
Yes.
Mhm. Other questions? Don't see any, but I have one question, Rose, related
Sure.
to the Muestra hand stamp.
Okay.
I recall seeing one from Peru, but I always thought it was applied in Peru. Now, the question is, American Bank printed stuff for many different countries and many different languages. Have you seen one for Brazil? Because Muestra sample in English is something different in Portuguese. According to Google Translate, it says it's amostra or something like that.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you have seen maybe one in another language other than Muestra.
No.
No.
And I've only seen well, I've seen Muestra on some other of these stamped paper, and then on the other values in that one series of stamps, and then only on that one envelope, and that's it. That's all that I've ever seen.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you see the Muestra on the Argentine stationery, but I know that was done
That
down
was
there.
done locally, yeah.
Right.
That's what I thought. Okay, cool. Thank you. Any other question, comments for Rose? I don't see anybody else. So with that, Rose, thank you very
Rose,
much.
Thank you.
Just one other question.
Sure.
Oh, please go ahead.
No, me.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, we
Hello?
can hear. We hear you. Can you hear us, Guillermo?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
See,
Hello?
It's frozen.
Okay. Ross, one question. Okay. In the grand things, yes, the one,
You're breaking up, Guillermo.
yeah,
the famous lot 4 of, I'm going to stop the video.
okay.
Hello?
Okay.
Do you hear me better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that you have presented, what was the role of what they have called the sample book, the famous lot 4 of the Christie's auction? How does this relate to the other archival material?
That is a whole nother set of
can
pages which
share
I
an
didn't
image
show.
if okay, but what was the role considering all that you have shown?
I mean, these were all books that they kept.
Do you know, maybe something we still need to read?
I think most of the well, the books that I showed pages from were intended to be kept as internal books. I suspect that there was a set of books that was kept within the engraving department, another one within the printing department, the engraved printing department, and another book for the lithographic printing department, and then you probably had some that was kept within the sales organization. And so I have a feeling that these books were kept in probably another set of books that were kept in the artist department. So I think they all served different purposes and intended for use only by the people within that were employees of the company. Some of the other books that have been out were more presentation books that they would sort of use as to show their kind of wares of what they could do. And then, of course, there's the famous image sheets of images that they made into a collage and put into some very fancy frames that were also sold. I think in an earlier set of auctions.
Yeah, in 88, no? 1988.
But there was some stuff that was sold before then. There was an earlier sale before the famous Christie set of sales.
Yeah, I tried to trace those books. yeah, the collage books, no, that the collage were in two books, no, one for stamps and the other one's for banknotes or something like that. And they sold all the lots as a single lot. They sold the
Yeah.
complete book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to trace them. I tried to trace them, couldn't find them. I could only find that some of them, the ones that had been put on, how do you call it? The ones that were used for hanging on the walls, they were donated to jail. But the books, nobody seemed to know where they are, at least the people I asked.
Yeah, I don't know where they ended up.
There might be secret collectors somewhere over there that they don't show or share their stuff. So, but who knows? Anything else, Guillermo?
No, thank you. Great information.
Perfect. Ross, thanks again. Thank you for clarifying this mystery of the numbering. Is always something I got confused, at least. Many other people probably do as well. Perfect. Gracias.
Anytime.
Envía de